Hey everybody, so welcome back to the top 100, and we are now at 40 to 31, so we're getting into really good stuff. I might as well just get started with it right away. So in the number 40 position, I have The Captain is Dead. So I got on a Star Trek game kick at one point, so I got a bunch of games that are theme based on Star Trek, and this one fits that bill, although it's not an official IP, but when you're playing it you can tell that it has that influence in it, but it is such a satisfying game. So it's a cooperative game and it'll play a large number of people, 2 to 7 players. And this one is hard. This one will beat you up. So you get set up and then you flip, I believe it's 3 cards that you flip of things that are breaking down to begin with. And the goal of the game is the captain is dead and the warp core is damaged, and you need to fix it in order to be able to get out of the situation that you're in, because you're not in a good place and then aliens are invading and are coming up and attacking you, and your force shield is going down and everything that can be going wrong is going wrong. So the main goal is to fix the warp core so that you can warp out of there. But in order to do that, you need to have one of the characters in that room with the necessary skill in order to do the repairs. But in the meantime, you need to survive until that is fixed as well. So you may have to go and repair the force shield, or shoot torpedoes to incoming aliens, or defeat the aliens that have made it on board. There's so much going on with this game. It is so satisfying to play, though. I really enjoy this one. Then in number 39 position, I have Bang the Dice Game. This game was first introduced to me when I went back home to New Brunswick for a visit, and my brother and my sister had gone down as well, and my cousin had come over and he brought this game and says, "Oh, we should play this." And we did. And then we played this game every night for 2 weeks straight, pretty much. And it was so neat. So this is definitely what I would consider a party game. And it has like the hidden role going on with it. So one person is the sheriff, and the sheriff will reveal who he is. So everybody knows who the sheriff is. Now the sheriff's goal is to get rid of the outlaws and the outlaws and the renegade. Then you'll have the outlaws, and the outlaws is to get rid of the sheriff. That's their goal. And the renegade needs to be the last player standing. And then you have the deputies, which basically have the same goal as the sheriff. They will assist the sheriff. But you don't know who anybody is except for who the sheriff is. And it's so neat. So you roll the dice. You'll roll a symbol that has like a target with a 1, and that means you're shooting a person 1 space away from you. Then there's one that's a target with a 2, and that means you're shooting a person 2 spaces away from you. You're still only shooting them 1 time, but there's 2 spaces away. Now, as players get eliminated, that might change who that is, right? And then you'll have some dynamite. Now, if you roll a dynamite, that dice is locked. You cannot re-roll it. But if you ever roll 3 dynamites, that explodes in your face, you take a damage, and then you end your turn there. You can still assign the other dice that have been rolled, but you can't keep rolling. Because you're allowed up to 3 rolls in this game, kind of Yahtzee style. And then your life is marked by the bullets, so you can lose bullets as you lose health. So if you roll a beer, then you can keep the beer and heal yourself. Now you can also assign beers to other players if you wanted to. And then you have the Gatling gun one, which will shoot everybody else by 1. And then the arrows, and if there's an arrow, you have to take the arrow from the middle of the table and take it with you. Now it doesn't do anything right away until the last arrow's been taken. Then everybody who has arrows have to put those back into the middle of the table and take that much damage. Such a neat, satisfying game. This is one that goes over well, and this is one that when we play, we end up playing again and again and again. Now, in number 38 position, I have Imhotep. This one is really neat. I had played this a long time ago when I first got into the hobby, and then kind of came across the game again and got my own copy. I'll play 2 to 4 players. Everybody gets their own colored bricks, basically, and these are little wooden cubes, but they're not little. Like, these are big wooden cubes. They're really big and chunky and satisfying to play with. And what's going to happen is on your turn, you start with a few of them. You can always bring more, or you can send bricks onto the boats. And depending on the boats, depending on the round, how many boats are available, how many bricks each boat can hold, and how many, like what the minimum is before the boat can be shipped out. And then you can put your bricks on there, and then you can put them in kind of any order that you want, but the order will matter because the order that is on there is how it comes off the boat as well, and depending on where it goes, that might make a difference. So the first place you can go is a market, and then where you can collect and buy cards. That's either going to give you like scoring abilities or special abilities that you can do. The next one is and I'm trying to read it upside down here, the obelisk, and you're just building a tower basically, and you're adding on top of that, and whoever has the tallest one gets so much point in second position, third position, and so on. And then the other one is like the temple, and what you're doing there is like you're adding the bricks. Is it the temple? I'm trying to read this. The burial chambers. And then you're adding the bricks, and you're trying to create clusters of your color and try to make it as large of a cluster as you can. Because the larger it is, the more it's worth. Now, of course, the other players are going to try to close down your clusters, which can be really frustrating. And then the other one is a pyramid. And at the pyramid, you're adding bricks and building a pyramid. And depending on the position of where you're putting it, how much point that's going to be worth. And you're keeping track of the points on the scorecard. And then the last one, and I think that's the temple, where you add on, and then you just add in order, and then you stack, and then you would stack. But the way that one score is kind of bird's eye view, looking down into it, the most color represented would score the most. It is neat. And then you can add bricks to boats. You can ship out a boat before it's fully full, just so that the other player doesn't send all those bricks to a location they really want. You can kind of mess them up and send them over to the temple or whatever it is that you're doing. It's such a neat, satisfying game. It plays fairly quick, and it's just neat. It looks good, has the chunky bits. It's just a winner. Now, in number 37 position, I have Gugong. This one, I don't own it. I want to own it. If I ever come across it, I will definitely get my own copy. I played my friend's copy at Board Game Bash of Blood a few years back, and I was so impressed with this one. So it's a worker placement, because you have all these different locations that you can kind of send your player to go, and you're playing these cards down. And it's interesting with a card is like you have to be, and I can't remember if you have to be lower than the value of the card there or go higher. But then what is interesting is you'll play your card, but then you take the card that was there, and then that comes into your hand. So if you play like your best card on the worst card, then you kind of swap that out. Now you're stuck with the worst card in your hand. Now if it's ever like the lowest and the highest, those will kind of interchangeable, so it will loop. But it was super neat. So you had the bottom location that you could visit, and I'm trying to remember this, and it's not clear. And then there's like the wall that you're building, that you're putting things on, and it was so good. And I need a refresher on this one. I seriously need a refresher on this one. But just the memory of how neat that mechanism was in this game, and how neat this whole game was, still made it in my top 100, and I need to find my own copy. Now, in number 36 position is the Transcontinental. I purchased this one at FallCon this last late summer. And this game had won the Canadian Game Designer Award the previous year, and then they had the games available to purchase there, so I bought my copy while I was there. And then I don't want to say like maybe a month or two later, I ended up playing it. My friend was over and he played it, so he taught it to me. Now this is a long game. We didn't end up having time to finish it. The first time I played, we ran out of time. But the whole way that this comes together is so satisfying. So basically, you're building the Transcontinental across Canada, starting from the east and trying to build the track all the way to the west. And you have these buildings that are on top and on the bottom along the line. And the building kind of take up two space, but they're staggered, the top and the bottom. And you're kind of, as you move the things along, you can kind of activate the top or the bottom as you go, kind of decide where this is kind of has a worker placement, because you would kind of decide which one you'd want to activate when you reach it. And then when you reach the end of the line, if you have any resources that's available to you, you can spend those resources to build further, and then that gives you benefit for doing that. And then at the top you have the train and the different things that are on the train that you would be able to collect, but then you can add train cars into the yard that wouldn't be attached to the train. So if the train's out and about, then you don't get to take advantage of those if they're not part of the train yet, until the train comes back and it's added to the train. And then like this whole game comes with a whole historical book of the actual event and the actual historic history of how the Transcontinental got built. So it was neat. It was satisfying. A lot of attention went into this game, and a lot of work went into it, and it's a neat, enjoyable game. It had a really unique mechanism that I hadn't come across, because each round the train will go back, and then it goes down, and then it comes back. So it's back and forth, and you get to activate things on the way there and on the way back, and then it's kind of resets, and then you go again. But now you have access to a little bit further, because they're building the track, and then you're unlocking more buildings. It was so cool. Then in number 35 position, I have Arkham Horror. So I bought this game. Now, I'm a big Cthulhu themed fan for some reason. Although I didn't like horror movies per se, I didn't like to be spooked, I really like them in the board game setting, and I have a lot of Cthulhu themed game. And then I actually ended up purchasing the insert for this game, thinking I was purchasing an insert for a different game. Didn't quite match. So I was like, oh, well, then I might as well buy the game. So I bought the insert for it. So I bought the game. Now, this is one that I had my eyes on anyways and wanted to get eventually. But, yeah, that kind of kind of forced my hand a little on this one. But this game, first of all, it looks good. You set this all up, and then you kind of create your map, and then depending on the scenario you're playing, how you're putting it together, and they have like the puzzle pieces where everything fits in so it doesn't shift around, and then you have the different location in your town, and then like the connectors and stuff, and then you start all in the one location. You all have different characters, and you have different abilities, and different things comes in, and this has a little bit of like pandemic mechanism, I feel, to it, because as you burn things over, you grab from the top and it comes out, and it grabs from the top, and then when something happens and it's like a haunt or something, you shuffle all of those, and they go like on the bottom, and sometimes you have to draw from the bottom, sometimes you draw from the top, but like it just makes it that area's more likely to get hit again, kind of like pandemics style. You're collecting items, you're trying to stop the cultists, and trying to keep, the bad entities from entering into the town. It's satisfying. This is another one that plays long. The first time we played, I think we played max player count 2, and then it was getting really late, so we ended up stopping the game. We were going to come back the next day, but then the scheduling didn't work out, so I packed it all up. Then I played it again at 2 players, and that was a lot more manageable. But just the story aspect of it and the feel that it creates is so neat. Then in number 34 position, I have Civilization: A New Dawn. I have a thing for Civilization games. I seem to buy them all the ones I come across anyways. And I like them, but I don't get to play them very much because they're so long to play. But not this one. This one plays in 1 to 2 hours, which is really quick for a Civilization game. And it's satisfying. So you have your map, and you have your starting location, like your starting town, and you can kind of develop things around it. Then you can branch out and kind of create further towns. And then if you've built things all the way around, then this one becomes that it has like the ability to send out, what is the word? You can send out wagons starting from that location, which is a little further away. And because you can kind of send out your wagons for trading, you can build up your different things. You all have like different civilization that you'll be playing with. And what's really interesting is the actions, like, because you have this board and you have these different actions of what you can do, but as you activate, it sends it to the end and the rest slides up. So, but the further up that they are, the more powerful the action is. So you're trying to kind of, move the things up and trying to make it so that when you do the action you really need, it's its most powerful state if you can, which is so neat and satisfying to play. And from what I understand, that was a mechanism that's been used in Ark Nova, although I have yet to play Ark Nova. But this one, I really love it. I love the look of it. I love the whole feel of it, and then how it plays and the mechanism involved with it. It's just so satisfying. Then in number 33 position, I have Fallout. So Fallout is based on a video games that I have never played. I played my friend's copy the first time and really enjoyed it, and then I wanted to get my own copy of this game. And it's just, I think the story developing element of it, I like story-driven games. And with this one, you have the map. Now, most of the cards are face down in the beginning until you start revealing and you flip them up. And then there'll be different monsters that comes up, and then depending on the cards that comes out, which mantras are activated and how they'll move. And then if you ever have to confront them, then you roll the dice, and the dice have like different body parts, because these different monsters, depending on the monster, has different areas that are weaker. So some will take damage if you hit them in the head, so you need to roll the dice that has the head icon on it. But they also have like little asterisks on it, and that's how much damage this monster is doing back to you as well. But you have these cards in there, and then you would kind of start with the card and says, okay, you went to this location, so you draw a card, and it says, well, you're in the market and you notice that there's a dog, and do you want to try and help the dog because the owner like is trying to get food or something, or do you want to just kick the dog away? And then depending on what you decide, which card comes into play. And some is like, okay, well, we've done this, and then this happened, the dog scurries away, but then you add this card in the deck. So you add those cards, you shuffle them in, and then at some point you might come across this dog again because you've added these cards into the deck. So as you develop and go through the map, the story develops and different cards comes in, different cards will go out, so the story changes, and the decisions you make will affect how the story changes. That's so neat. It is so clever. I love it. It's so much fun. Then in number 32 position, I have Viticulture. This is a game that I had heard of a lot, and I played it for the first time at a little mini Melcon I had done at my house, and it is neat. I see why it's talked about so much. So with this one, what's really interesting is you're in a vineyard, you're making your own wine, and you're trying to grow the grapes and then harvest the grapes, and then you're going to stomp it and create the wine and then let it age and ferment, and then when you have your wine at the right level and the right value, then you try to fulfill wine orders with them and then get points for that. But what's really interesting is on the main board, you have so many workers. This is a worker placement game. And there's actions that you can do in the summertime that'll do different things. And you can do however many of them you want. But then you have the action in the wintertime. And if you don't save workers from the summer task to activate winter tasks, then like you need to kind of keep that in consideration. Oh, I could go do that. But I really want to save some people for my winter task because I need to do this and I need to go and fulfill this order. And like there's all these to take in consideration as well. And it is so satisfying. Such an amazing game. And then finally for this installment, my number 31 position is Camel Up. Camel Up is satisfying. It's so easy to bring to the table. It'll play a large group of people. It looks amazing. So I have the second edition one. You open the board, there's this whole pop-up oasis that comes up, and then you have the pyramid, this plastic pyramid that where all the dice goes in. You shake it and you push a button on the side, and then a dice comes out, and that dice represents the movement of the camel. And you're basically attending this camel race, and we're bidding on camels. So nobody owns the camel. It doesn't really matter which camel wins. If you've bid on them, you're trying to bid on the winning camel, and you'll bid on the different leg of the race, but you're also bidding for the final outcome of the race as well. And what's interesting is when a camel lands on top of it, so if a yellow lands on top of the green and then the green moves afterward, the yellow's going to go along with it. And then you have these crazy camels, the white and the black one, that are going backwards. So if a camel lands on top of one of those and then it moves, it's going to move that camel's the wrong way. It's neat, it's quick, it's simple, but it has a lot of like that excitement, and it's just a satisfying game. And that was it for my installment. So we just finished doing our top 100 on the Board Game Specialist podcast with me and my friend Carla. So if you want to see what Carla's the top 50 on Carla's list, be sure to listen into the podcast. I am also on Instagram as Mal's_boardgame_room, and then my Facebook page is Mal's Board Game Room, and my YouTube channel is Mal's Board Game Room. So bye everybody.